Bermuda was such a wonderful surprise for us. It was easily one of the most magical places that we visited. People are warm and friendly, the food was amazing, and the beaches, they looked unreal. Already dreaming about going back, so instead, let's share this video about our 3 days in Bermuda. Bermuda is located in the northern Atlantic Ocean, and this is actually something that I found out before a trip that a lot of people in the US, at least that I talked to, didn't realize. Bermuda is only about a 2-hour flight from New York City. And if you're cruising, many ships, like the one that we sailed in on, depart right from New York City or New Jersey. The really cool thing about this is that most cruises do overnight stays in Bermuda, which means there is more time to explore the island instead of having to rush back to the ship like you often have to do when you're on a cruise. We sailed in on the Celebrity Eclipse and had 3 days in Bermuda. Cruise ships dock at the Royal Naval Dockyard, and as soon as we arrived, we were ready to start exploring. The area right outside the cruise terminal is really easy to navigate. You'll find lots of transportation options, excursion stands, and even rentals for scooters. And these tiny little electrical cars that are called Twizzies. You cannot rent a regular car as a tourist in Bermuda, but you can rent a scooter or a Twizzy. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's just something good to note. Our plan was to buy a 3-day transportation pass. This lets you hop on buses and ferries across the island. But the line was super long when we first got there, so we took some time to explore the dockyard instead because we did have an afternoon excursion and we thought it was better to spend our time this way and go back for the pass later. There are a few shops right in the dockyard area. Yeah, they're pretty touristy, but you are a tourist, in fact. So, like if you need a hat, a beach cover-up, a fun souvenir, a t-shirt, you can find all of that here. Bermuda really has a fascinating history. The Royal Naval Dockyard was originally established in the early 1800s by the British Royal Navy. Because of Bermuda's location in the Atlantic, it also played key roles in both World War I and World War II. Serving as a base for Allied ships and submarines. You can still see remnants of its military past scattered around the island, from old forts to cannons and even underground tunnels. One of the main spots in the dockyard is the Clock Tower Mall. It's located inside 2 historic British Naval warehouse buildings and has everything from handmade jewelry and local art to a cute cafe and a small ice cream shop. It's right across from the bus stop in this area. And there is also a shuttle that runs between the ships and the mall if you prefer not to walk, or if you have mobility issues, or if walking is a challenge. We spent some time here checking out the art and talking to the people working in the shops. We love supporting local artists wherever we go. So this is always one of the first things we try to do when we dock anywhere. There were so many fun and unique items here. We actually ended up picking up some gifts for members of my family, some Christmas and birthday presents. Everyone cruises differently, but one thing that I do want to mention is that when we cruise, we explore everything. We try to stay out as long as we possibly can. We really like to see as much of the area as we can when we take a cruise somewhere. I know not everyone cruises that way, and that is okay. If you are not coming to Bermuda on a cruise ship with the purpose of exploring Bermuda, I think you should at least check out this area because there is a lot of really cool stuff right here, and you could easily see all of it in a few hours. After checking out the Royal Naval Dockyard and the Clock Tower Mall, the line had died down at Visitor Services, so we went over to get our transportation pass. If you are not planning on renting a scooter or a Twizy, I highly recommend getting a transportation pass. Next up was our snorkeling excursion with Restless Native. I actually booked this one directly with the company because I didn't really love any of the options offered by Celebrity, and they were also more expensive. One really great perk about cruising with an itinerary that has overnights is that you don't have to be back on the ship any specific time until it's time to leave. So you don't have to worry about booking an excursion outside of the cruise line, especially if it's on your first or second day, because you can go back to the ship whenever you want. You are allowed to come and go as you please. You can fully enjoy your day, you can stay out late. We saw some people leaving the ship as late as like 10 or 11, so you definitely have a lot more flexibility, and I encourage you to check out other excursions if you're not seeing something that you love, because the risk is a lot lower when you're sailing on an overnight itinerary. Our tour started by boarding a catamaran and heading out onto the gorgeous turquoise waters of Bermuda. I didn't get underwater footage because I forgot my waterproof camera gear, of course, because why wouldn't I? But we did snorkel, we kayaked, did some paddle boarding. But the cost of the excursion was unlimited rum swizzles, and let me tell you, they were not holding back on those rum swizzles. The drinks were good and strong. Rum swizzles are Bermuda's signature cocktail. They are so good. And the thing that a lot of people really loved about this, and this is going to sound silly, is we got these little chocolate chip cookies that they baked right on the catamaran. So might not seem like a big deal, but when you are drinking alcohol, having a snack is always a big help, right? And of course, they did also offer water. After snorkeling, we cruised around the island for a little bit, listening to music and just soaking up the views. It was so peaceful and fun, and it was just such a perfect way to start our trip. After we got back from our excursion, we changed, and then we jumped on the ferry to go over to Hamilton. On Wednesday nights, May through early September, Hamilton hosts Harbor Nights. This is a weekly street festival with local vendors, food stalls, live music, and cultural performances. It's kind of like a block party. It's really fun. The energy is really fun. We ended up grabbing dinner at the Hog Penny. I love a British pub, and this was a great one. Just a few minutes walk away from the main area. The food and drinks were both great, but I do want to mention one thing when talking about the food and drinks in Bermuda. Okay, so Bermuda is expensive, and that's mostly because they have to import almost everything. But a lot of people who regularly watch our channel, and if you are not one of our regular subscribers, this does not apply to you. But if you're someone who normally watches our channel, you are used to Disney prices. I did not think that Bermuda's prices were actually that much different than Disney's. Maybe slightly higher, but really the prices were pretty in line. I was not shocked by any of the prices on any of the things that we got, and I think that's because we have gone to Disney so many times, and that's just what we expect. So keep in mind, expensive is always contextual. For me, I didn't think that it was very expensive compared to Disney. I obviously did think it was expensive compared to Ohio, which is where I live. So keep that in mind when people say that. I know that there are a lot of people who would go back to the cruise ship to eat so that they didn't have to pay Bermuda prices. Again, I really prefer to support the local economy whenever I'm cruising anywhere, especially cruising. I try my best to support the local economy. Plus, I experience culture through food. I experience life through food. I'm someone who likes to eat. So for me, going back to the cruise ship and eating was just not something I was interested in doing, but there's nothing wrong with that if that is the way that you vacation. It's just not what we did. Here is another look at the Twizzies. Again, like I said, you cannot rent a regular car in Bermuda, but you can rent a mini car, and they usually do seat 2 people. There are some that seat 4, but for the most part, they are 2-seaters. If you are from the US, please just note they drive on the left-hand side of the road. So keep that in mind. After we finished eating, we made our way over to the Hamilton Princess Hotel, also known as the Pink Palace. This is one of the most famous hotels on the island and has been open since 1885. Over the years, it has hosted celebrities, royalty, and said to be even some spies during World War II. I thought that was a really cool fun fact. I love that kind of stuff. I didn't end up getting any video of the inside of the hotel for whatever reason, but we did walk around the grounds. Everything out here is so lush. Walked back to the beautiful back patio, which is open to non-guests as well. There are some restaurants back here and bars that you can eat at. I thought this area was just so fun for like photo op. They have a pink telephone booth here. Like that is just so cute to me. So Instagrammable if you're someone who's into Instagram. Something that you'll see all over Bermuda. You'll see moon gates, and these are these circular stone arches. And it said if you walk through them, you can make a wish and it'll bring you good luck. After exploring the grounds of the hotel, we walked back into the city to experience more of the Harbor Nights Festival. And got to watch the Gambe dancers, which honestly was so cool to see. The energy here is so much fun. People just dancing, drumming, they have these costumes. Gambe dancing is a blend of African, Caribbean, and British cultures, and it is an important part of Bermuda's heritage. We ended our night with some shaved ice and then hopped back on to the ferry to the Royal Dockyard. And that was the end of day 1. We started off day 2 with really one big goal, and that was to explore as much of Bermuda's south shore as we could. So we got off the ship early and walked over to the bus stop to catch one of the first buses of the day. Here's a look of the inside of the bus. It was pretty comfortable. I will say when the cruise ships are in port, the buses fill up fast. So be prepared to stand or wait because both of those things are options. When we were there were actually 2 cruise ships docked, us and the Norwegian Joy, so everything was just more crowded, and that's just something you have to expect when cruises are docked. The ride was pretty scenic through some coastal areas. Our first destination was to Horseshoe Bay, and that took about 35 to 40-ish minutes from Royal Naval Dockyard. When you get off at the Horseshoe Bay bus stop, just know you're not going to be quite at the beach. It does drop you off at the stop, and then you have to walk a little ways. But it is a bit of a trek. So again, if you have any kind of issues with mobility, if you're lugging a lot of stuff, it might be easier for you to just call a cab, or they use what's called Hitch instead of like Uber or Lyft. It might just be easier for you to call one of those services if navigating this is going to be a challenge for you. They can drop you off much closer to the actual beach. This is the most developed beach in the area, at least from what I can see. If I am wrong about that, feel free to correct me in the comments. There are restrooms, changing facilities, chairs and umbrellas for rent, and they even have a snack bar. This was also the most crowded of all the beaches, and again, we were there when 2 cruise ships were docked, so if you're going during a time when there are no cruise ships, it might not be this busy, but we felt it was pretty crowded, which was, again, not surprising. The beaches in the South Shore area are known for the famous pink sand. And I don't know how well you can see it on this video. I did my best to color correct without exaggerating the colors, and it is really, really beautiful. The pink hue comes from crushed coral and tiny shells mixed with the white sand, and it just creates this beautiful, like, pink glow. It's pretty subtle, but it is stunning. It is so pretty, and when you see it, I'm one of those people, I'm like always amazed at like everything, especially if it's something like visually stunning, and I'm just like, wow, this is so gorgeous. Like every 5 seconds. So that's me. The water is crystal clear, some of the bluest water I have ever seen. The sand is so soft. One thing I want to mention is if you are going to be visiting the beaches in this area, or at least from what I could see, really honestly most areas of Bermuda, I would recommend bringing some sort of water shoes. There are sharp rocks and reefy areas kind of all over the place, and you can really hurt yourself on some of those. We definitely saw more than a few people have cuts on their feet from those rocks. Now, if you're just going to be like wading in the water and really just staying on that very soft sand, you're probably going to be fine. But if you plan to explore the beaches at all, I really think that you need to invest in some water shoes. And I will link the ones that I used. I will link them in the caption because they were great. And I actually thought they were pretty cute for water shoes, which I feel like is sometimes a challenge because water shoes can be pretty ugly. From Horseshoe Bay, we then started exploring more of the area along the South Shore Park Trail. This is a little over a mile long, and it connects several beaches via the scenic path. It's pretty easy to navigate as long as you're okay with walking on sand. The trail is such a nice way to just experience nature, and the beaches along here are a lot less developed, but there is a restroom along this path. And as you can see, there is also a parking lot for those who want to drive here instead of walk. We took a little time at each beach we came to, soaking up the sun and salty air, and honestly, it was just perfect. Dobson's Cove had especially calm waters, which we thought was perfect for families. And we also loved exploring all of these little rock formations throughout. This was really cool to see. And one thing that our hitch driver told us, he said that the rock formations are actually volcanic in origin. Bermuda was formed by volcanic activity in the mid-Atlantic ridge. So over time, the volcano eroded and coral reefs formed the limestone island that you see today. I thought that was really cool. He was really proud of that fun fact. One thing I have to say about Bermudians, they are so friendly. I have been to Scotland and I thought the Scots were the warmest, friendliest, kindest people like on the planet. And I do actually still believe that. But Bermudians are the only other people that I have met that were like on that same vibe. So warm and welcoming. Everyone was just so lovely. All right, back to the beaches. The last beach on our list was Warwick Long Bay. Honestly, it was our favorite. The sand here was just so soft. Again, it's that nice pink sand. The water was just so clear. We loved being able to climb up into this area and just kind of watch life go by. And, you know, not something I usually make time to do is kind of just sit there and take everything in. And for some reason, being in this spot, yeah, it was perfect.
I get a little bit breathless. My thoughts are too big. Can I get some comfort, please? I guess I should have been honest. It breaks in my heart. It's weighing me down, baby.
After exploring the beaches, we decided it was time for food. We found a local spot on Yelp called Seaside Grill that was in walking distance from where we were. It's located in Southampton. There's not a ton of areas outside of the major cities that have sidewalks. So just be really careful. Some of the shoulders aren't very wide. Like always, just pay attention. We got the famous fried fish sandwich in Bermuda that is considered, I guess, like their signature dish. It's fried wahoo on raisin bread. It was so good, and I'm kind of particular about fish, so I wasn't sure how it would be, but it was delicious. The portion size was also great, and we ended up splitting one between the two of us. Along with the sandwich, we got fries, coleslaw, and 2 bottles of water, and it was around $25, so I didn't think that was too bad. We were able to find a picnic table along the side of the road. They have a couple of these scattered throughout between the beaches and the seaside grill where we got our food. And it was the perfect backdrop for our beach day lunch. So after lunch, we decided to try out the Bermuda Railway Trail. Now, the Bermuda Railway Trail was a little bit of a confusing thing to me, and I'm gonna just say it's because the information that's online is a bit vague. I had a hard time finding any really concrete information about it, so we kind of just decided to wing this section. I didn't know where I was heading, and I was hoping that I was going in the right direction, and it worked out. The railway trail follows the route of Bermuda's only train line, which operated for just a short time from 1931 to 1948. And then after the railway shut down, the government converted the path into a walking and biking trail that now stretches over 18 miles across the island. There are paved and unpaved sections that pass through coastal areas, forest areas, residential areas. So it's a pretty mixed bag depending on what section of the railway trail you are going to be on and what specifically you're looking for. We were walking to Fort Scar and we made it, so I was happy about that. Once you get to the Fort Scar Trail, you will have to ascend. So again, if hiking upwards is something that's a challenge for you, this is something that would be easier to get a hitch for, get a cab for, rent a scooter or a Twizy, or just take an excursion because they do have a parking lot, so you can access it via car. We just wanted to walk. As someone who really enjoys walking and hiking, so for me, this was something I wanted to do, but you definitely don't have to do it this way. Fort Scar was built in the 1860s by the British to protect the Royal Naval Dockyard from a potential U.S. invasion after the Civil War. Because of its location, there are incredible views of the ocean, the Great Sound, and you can also see Royal Naval Dockyard. You can actually see the cruise ships from here. Nowadays, it is a peaceful park with trails, underground tunnels, and an interesting spot to learn about Bermuda's history. We explored the grounds, we read all of the signage talking about the history of the area, and ventured into some of the underground sections. Some of them were pretty cool. I will say there were a couple that were a little on the spooky side that we turned around and came back because, well, they were kind of scary. There are also restrooms up here, so if you plan to stay a while, I just feel like that is good information to know. Over here, you will also find the Bermuda Weatherstone, which is obviously very reliable and scientific. It says the stone is perfect weather indication. A dry stone means it's not raining. A wet stone means it is raining. A shadow under the stone means the sun is shining. If the stone is swinging, it means there's a strong wind blowing. If the stone jumps up and down, it means there's an earthquake. And if it's ever white on top, believe it or not, it's snowing. As you can see, probably the most reliable weather prediction that we can actually get, right? So after we took some time to explore the fort, we made our way back down to the railway trail and kept walking until we located the nearest bus stop. Kind of just another little tip about using the bus stops and the transportation here. Some of the stops are really cute, like little huts or like little structures that are covered. Some of them are literally just a colored pole on the side of the road. A pink pole means you're going toward Hamilton, and a blue pole means that you're coming away from Hamilton. We decided to go back into Hamilton for dinner. It was so much quieter this time because the Harbor Nights crowds had gone away. In Hamilton, right near the water, is where you'll find the Bermuda sign. We did not see it the first time that we were here because there were a lot of vendors set up, there was a lot of people. But if you are looking for the Bermuda sign to take your photo with, you can find that here. We decided to eat at Devil's Isle Diner, which was a recommendation from a Bermudian that I had talked to the day before. It's nothing fancy, but the food was actually really good and very filling. Prices were slightly higher than Hogpenny that we had dined at the day before, but again, I still felt it was pretty similar to like a meal that I would buy at Disney, and still like in line with probably if you've been in Bermuda for a couple days. I thought that it was still, pretty in line with those standard prices. After dinner, we decided we wanted to check out the birdcage. This is located right near the harbor. This is such a fun rooftop bar with views of the harbor. On Thursdays, they have live music. You can check their Instagram for who is playing and what time. And really fun cocktails. The whole vibe here was just fun. I loved it. I loved the colors. The service was great. Everyone was just so nice. Such a good vibe. And it was such a great way for us to kind of chill and end our day, especially since we had such a busy day. We did so much. It was such a packed day. So having this little time to like unwind and kind of just enjoy things was awesome. And then after that, we got back on the ferry to Dockyard. And that was the end of day 2 in Bermuda. Okay, day 3 in Bermuda. We decided to head out to St. George's. This was a little tricky because it also happened to be Bermuda Day, which is celebrated annually on the last Friday in May. So while we did have a few things left on our list that we really wanted to see before leaving, we were also doing all of this during a national holiday, which definitely has some challenges and truthfully is totally my fault. I would just like to say I'm a travel agent, travel advisor, travel planner, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes, unfortunately, that means that I don't give myself the same airtime to plan my trips that I give to my clients, because I'm planning my clients' trips, and sometimes depending on what my workload is like, depending on where my clients are traveling, sometimes I just don't really have the time to do the research that is needed to be done. But you know what? I always look at it like that's fine. Like it's a good learning experience because I learned a lot from this trip and I learned a lot from this itinerary, and I now know that I would have done things differently. With that being said, I do want to say this is not the itinerary that I personally would recommend. I'm hoping that if you're watching this video and you're planning for a Bermuda trip, you can take the pieces and parts of all the things that you want to do and put them in your own, little itinerary that works for you. The reason that I would not put St. George's on the last day is because it's actually very far from Royal Naval Dockyard, and there are not as many ferries that go between Royal Naval Dockyard and St. George's as there are that go between Royal Naval Dockyard and, say, Hamilton. And if you are on a time crunch, and like in our case, we're on a time crunch on a national holiday, if you miss the ship when it's time to leave, they will more than likely leave without you. When the ship leaves, it leaves. Don't put yourself in that position like I did. So even though it was a little bit of a risk doing the trip the way that we did, I am glad that I made the time to go out to St. George's because it was amazing. We do plan to go back, and when we go back, we'll actually probably stay in this area of the island because there was a lot up there that we just didn't get to see. St. George's actually used to be the capital of Bermuda. It is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is also where you'll find the Bermuda airport. So like I said, if we went back, we would just fly into St. George's and then we would just stay up there. The town is so charming with colorful buildings, really walkable areas. A lot of shops were closed because of the holiday, but we did find an iced coffee shop that was open, which I was very excited about. Our big goals for our day in St. George's were the Unfinished Church and Cooper's Island Nature Reserve. So we started out with the Unfinished Church since you can access that right from town. It's actually behind the new church. There are not sidewalks, so just be careful when you are navigating this area. You can see it. It is just this massive, like, Gothic style structure just standing there right outside of the main section of town. It is kind of haunting, actually. Okay, so here's the story of the Unfinished Church. After St. Peter's Church was damaged in a storm in 1874, they planned to build a replacement on the site of the old government house. Construction began, but then basically everything that could go wrong really kind of did. The soil was unstable, so it didn't really provide enough structure for it. The project was underfunded from the start, and there were major disagreements between the Protestant and Anglo-Catholic members of the parish. Church drama, everybody. By 1882, the exterior was mostly complete, but then it stopped and they just never finished it. And then in 1926, a hurricane came by and damaged it even more. So it was just kind of doomed from the beginning. It's just one of those stories where it just like had everything against it, honestly. In 1992, the Unfinished Church was officially declared a protected historic monument by the Bermuda National Trust. Today, it is a space that is open to the public, completely free, and people use it to book like their weddings and stuff. And I saw some pictures online of people for their wedding receptions and like their wedding pictures, and it looks really cool. There is something I do need to mention regarding this. As you can see, we are inside of the unfinished church. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because when I was fact checking myself to make sure that I was like remembering everything properly and putting the right information in the video, found a couple sites that said you're actually not allowed to go inside. Now, when we were there were a lot of people going inside, and there was nothing that I could find saying you couldn't go inside. I'm a rule follower, so if there was anything that said we couldn't go inside, I wouldn't have gone inside just for the sake of footage. But we did go inside, and there were a lot of people inside. I just don't know if now you are allowed or not allowed. Regardless if you can go inside or not, I still think it's worth checking out. It is really cool to see, even if you can just like peek through the gates, even if you can just like look through the windows. It is a really cool thing to see. Yeah, so our trip was actually a year ago, May 2024. It has just taken me so long to get to all of this footage because I knew it was going to be a huge project. Truthfully, this is like the kind of video that I consider like a labor of love. I don't know if anyone's going to watch it. I don't know if anyone's going to appreciate the full length of it and stuff, but it is something that I wanted to do because I loved Bermuda and I think that it deserves the airtime. So that is why it has taken me so long to do it, because I wanted to do it and I wanted to do it right. So now you know, this is not current. This is from May 2024. After exploring the unfinished church, we took a hitch ride over to Cooper's Island Nature Reserve right from the middle of town. It was phenomenal, and it was actually off limits to the public for decades because it was used as a US military base and a NASA tracking station during the Cold War and the space race. NASA even used the island to track Apollo missions. The area was only open to the public in around 1995 and then later designated as a nature reserve. Our hitch driver on the way to Cooper's Island had so many interesting stories to tell us about this area. And if you have made it this far in my video, bless you, first of all. But secondly, if you are traveling anywhere, there's one thing that I will tell you that I think is the most valuable thing that you can do on your trip, and that is talking to people who live there. While we were in Bermuda, like I said, I just felt like everyone was so friendly and so talkative. I feel like I just learned so much just by talking to just people that we were in contact with, like our hitch drivers. Like, do not be afraid to talk to them. Do not be afraid to ask questions. I think people really miss out when they're traveling when they don't talk to people who live in the area, because I feel like there's just so much that you can learn. And I just think, yeah, honestly, it's the thing that makes like all of my trips is talking to the people that live wherever I am. So, all right. So anyway, in this area, they have that same like gorgeous crystal clear turquoise water, powdery soft sand. It is not pink, it's more like white, but it is like heaven. Like, it feels so like silky soft. It feels so good on your feet. It is just beautiful. I feel like I just could keep saying that about Bermuda all day long. It is just such a gorgeous place. We explored a few of the trails through here and a few of the little coves. Came across a beach that kind of felt like our own like little private island. There was just like 2 other people there. And so we spent some time there kind of just wading in the water, playing in the sand, checking out the little cove areas over there. It was amazing. We started making our way back so we could grab a hitch back to the ferry station. There are actually a lot of other things to see and do at Cooper's Island. There are things like Salt Marsh area with a boardwalk. There's a wildlife observation tower at the far end, which is a great place to spot like whales and migratory birds. There are a lot of other things. We were kind of limited on time, again, which was totally a planning error on my behalf. But you could easily spend multiple hours there if you had the time. And it is just beautiful. We made it back to the ship and said one last goodbye to Bermuda. Our trip to Bermuda was honestly one of my favorites I've ever taken. And again, something that was really interesting about that is it was very last minute. I think I booked it maybe a month before. I had no time to plan anything. It was very much like I was winging it, and yet it happened to be one of the most wonderful places that I have ever been to. The scenery was absolutely stunning. The Bermudian people were just so friendly and so lovely. And even though I definitely made a few mistakes in the planning portion, I'm so glad that we went, and we will be coming back. We have already decided that next time we're going to fly in from New York City, plan to stay a little bit longer, and have a little bit more of a plan, and check out a lot of the spaces that we missed, because there is a lot more to see and do than what we did while we were there. Bermuda was completely magical for me in every single way. We loved every minute of it. And even though this was a trip that was taken over a year ago, we talk about it so frequently that I know we will be back. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you if you're planning a trip to Bermuda. And if you're not planning a trip, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.